Good evening. Welcome to this evening's council meeting. It is June 23rd, 2014. I'm Acting Mayor Ted Schaefer. With me this evening are my council colleagues, Councillor Jack Arnold, Councillor Rosemary Wallace, Councillor Gail Martin, Councillor Dave Hall. The staff this evening, we have with us Darren Light, our Director of Corporate Services, Carolyn Machada, Manager of Legislative Services, Francis Chung, our CAO, Gerald Minchuk, Director of Development Services and Economic Development, Rick Baumhoff, Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment, Rory Thompson, our Fire Chief, and Kim Hilton, our Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services. And we're going into Committee of the Whole. I need a motion that Council will resolve into Committee of the Whole. Councillor Hall, Councillor Martin, all those in favor? Unanimous. The first item is the Bylaw 2938, Financial Plan 2014-2018, Amendment Number 1, Corporate Services, to review the amendment. Is there, or to Darren?
Certainly, I thank you, Acting Mayor Schaefer and members of council, and to our viewing audience. Today we have a financial plan amendment relating to our capital improvement plan. There are 5 items on that amendment, and I'll walk through them just briefly for your benefit. The first one is 48th Avenue, 205th Street to 208th Street. Basically, this is a amendment to increase the budget by $470,000 to $1.9 million. This is a road project that we've tendered the project, and the tender price is higher than what we had anticipated in our initial budget. There is some changes to the funding sources for that project, increasing the amount that's coming from DCCs, because we do have a new DCC bylaw since this project was initially budgeted in 2011. The second project is relating to the Maple Ridge Barnston Island Pump Station. This is a Metro Vancouver, Greater Vancouver Water District project, bringing water from Maple Ridge, the Coquitlam Reservoir, to through Barnston Island to service Surrey, Township of Langley, and the City of Langley. We have a set contribution rate of 4.91% based on an agreement that we entered into in, I believe it was even in the 70s, 1970s. And this project, our proportionate share has gone up a little bit, $310,000, so we're asking council to approve that increase. The third project is relating to 200th Street, relating to the work that's planned for 200th Street. Metro Vancouver, again, is doing a project replacing the sanitary line along 200th Street, as well as storm mains. The city wants to also do a project to replace our storm lines, water, and resurface the road. It is cost effective to do both projects at the same time so that we're not into the road in 2 consecutive years. So we're asking council to increase that budget by $800,000, bringing it to a total of $4.6 million. The fourth project relates to the Douglas Park Playground. We have received a grant from Tire Stewardship BC to replace the playground surface under the playground at Douglas Park, and this budget amendment is to reflect that grant increase in the project, as well as to seek approval of council to use the extra funding to make other improvements, amenities in that playground, including benches, picnic table, and a bike rack, as well as the pathway between the newly renovated water park and the playground. And the final item is relating to the Parks Operations Center building upgrade. This is a project that has an initial budget of $100,000. Looking at the building that we purchased last year, in order to make it fully serviceable, we need to install an HVAC system in the building to allow for air quality and air conditioning in the new building, and that's an increase of $35,000.
Thank you, Mr. Light. Members of the public, Are there any members of the public like to comment on this? None? Thank you. Second item is the development permit application number 03-14, and that's at 20901 Langley Bypass. And I have Karen Hearn here from Kwantlen. And do you have John Wall with you? Yes? Here. Would you like to speak on your presentation then?
Thank you very much. Good evening, Your Worship, Mayor Ted Schaefer and Council. I just want to provide a few contextual comments before passing over to John. My role is the Executive Director of Facilities Services, so my team have the privilege of being responsible for the planning, design, construction, and operation of KPU's campuses. We wanted to acknowledge the great support that we've had from the City of Langley, both when we had our temporary campus and then the permanent campus in 1993. We've been very privileged to have the support from you and strong relationship, and look forward to that continuing into the future. We're excited about this new brewing program. It is the only one of its type in British Columbia, and there are only 2 others in all of Canada. It supports our Polytechnic mandate and our Strategic Vision 2018, which you recently heard about. It creates relevant learning with blended theory and practice, including a summer work study time. So it's a 2-year program, and our students are going to study the science and production and business of brewing in the state-of-the-art brew lab. In planning for the building, we took our past learning. So some of you may recall, we had trades offerings at the Langley campus in the past, and it was in conflict with our neighbors. We relocated those to our Cloverdale campus, and we wanted to ensure that we took steps so that this operation does not create a situation which is a challenge for both the campus and the community. We identified 3 major potential impacts: odor, noise, and waste removal. And John will describe to you the steps that we've taken, and we're confident that the strategies we're going to use will ensure that the facility positively impacts both the campus and the community. We also wanted to identify for you that the new instructional lab is considerably smaller than even the smallest microbrewery brew pub that you will have come across. It's a small teaching facility so that they can have the practical application of learning to brew beer. Back on May 8th, we hosted a public information session, and we invited over 250 households within a 100-meter radius of the campus to come and review the proposed facility. Unfortunately, it was a November-ish kind of night in May with huge rain, and we only had 3 community members come forward. And of the comments that they identified, their concerns were the same as ours as to what steps we'd be taking to mitigate any odor, any noise, and how waste removal was going to be handled. We're very excited about the launch of the new brewing and brewery operations program, which is scheduled to start in September, with the building ready for brew in the new year. We'll be providing our neighbors with a contact name and number so that throughout the project, if they have any questions or concerns, they can make that contact back to us. And we thank you very much for the consideration of the project. John Wall will take you through the details about the building. So thank you for your time.
Karen, thank you, Mayor and Council.
You better grab the mic. Yeah.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, a little closer is always better.
Closer is always better. Perfect. Thank you. So just to orient you, the new proposed facility is the gray polygon that's located in the north-west corner of the campus. You can see that it's relatively, as Karen said, a small building in relationship to the big campus. The main entrance is located on the south side of the building, and it faces one of the main entrances to the campus, the west entrance that's accessible and visible off Glover Road. Parking for the facility will be in the existing parking lot and just adjacent to the new building. We'll be utilizing unused capacity. Kwantlen has spare capacity, and we'll be taking advantage of that, so no new parking stalls will be built. Accessible stalls are located in a very convenient, right across from the building. There's 2 existing accessible stalls that will serve the building. In terms of relationship with the building mass, the building is set 5 meters back from the ring road, and it's snuggled up right close to the existing building. That south entrance is right adjacent to a secondary entrance of the main science wing that allows for easy access for students between the science wing and the new building. So this shows, the bottom photograph shows the building site where the new building is planned to go. The top photo just shows some of the context. So if you're familiar with the Langley campus, you're aware that the building is primarily brown brick with metal cladding above. It's a very handsome building, and it's a great it's a great opportunity to add to the campus. We're looking to relate the new building in a seamless way. So the materials we're using will be the same brick that adorns the existing building. We'll be using metal siding that relates to the top of the campus, and then we're proposing a sloped metal roof that addresses the pedestrian entry and directs the pedestrians to where the main entrance is. So this rendering here shows an image of what the new building will look like. As you can see, as Karen said, it's a very modest building. We have a number of windows that look into the facility from various sides. There's one that faces north that would be visible from public streets that showcase the interesting work that the students are doing, that showcase the interesting equipment that you find in breweries. That main entrance is facing south, so there's good daylight penetration. And then there's some modest regrading that happens to deal with the new floodplain elevation. One thing you should be aware of, this building, because of the new floodplain bylaw, is actually about 1 meter higher than the existing building in terms of the ground floor elevations. And we've dealt with that with just some very careful grading around the building. This is an image of the north side of the building. This is where shipping and receiving will happen. There's an existing service lane that Quantland uses to bring services into the science wing. They bring in gases and other chemicals that the students use in their education processes. So we felt it made sense to try and use that existing service lane. The stores that will be used for brewing beer are actually very modest. They expect about 1 delivery a week of a cube-sized van that would be bringing in things like barley and malt and other materials that the students will use for making beer. Garbage and waste will be also leaving the building in that location. We'll be providing a screen, architectural screen, a fence to make sure that there's not an undue impact on neighbors, that those activities of shipping and receiving are screened. You should also be aware there's some windows showing in the rendering that bring natural light into the lab to provide just a good working environment for students. And just one final comment. The space between the 2 buildings is where we're looking to install a rain garden. Any rainwater that comes off the roof will be diverted into the rain garden. That will be the Quantland's landscape students will be partaking in development of the landscape plan. There'll be large boulders and rocks and different native plants that will be used to create the rain garden. And that will also help keep people out of what is actually a relatively narrow space between the 2 buildings. And I think that's final comments.
Thank you. I would now like to invite members of the public to comment if they so wish. Other comments? None? you're off the hook. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
The next item...
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yes?
Will the proponents be available when we move on to this under business horizon?
Will you stay for for when we deal with your proposal?
Certainly.
Thank you. The next item is item 3, the 2013 annual report, and I'd like to invite the Chief Administrative Officer to speak on this.
Thank you,
Mr.
Worship.
Chung?
Before you tonight is, for your consideration, is the 2013 annual report, which sets out the performance of the city with respect to the objectives and measure for 2013. The annual report must be adopted by Council by June 30th in accordance with Section 98 and 99 of the Community Charter. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Invite members of the public. None? So then the Committee of the Whole rise and report. I so need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Martin, Councillor Arnold, all those in favor? It's unanimous. The next item is the adoption of the agenda. There will be one correction or one modification, that the agenda of the June 23rd, 2014 regular meeting of Council be amended. The delegation is unable to attend this evening, so motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Hall, Councillor Martin, all those in favor? It's unanimous. The next item is the minutes of June the 9th, 2014. Need a motion to adopt. Councillor Hall, Councillor Martin, all those in favor? It's unanimous. So that will, pardon me, and that was the regular one. I went out of order. The public hearing held on June the 9th, 2014, adopted. I need a mover, Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Wallace. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Business arising from the Committee of the Whole, Bylaw 2938, the Financial Plan 2014-2018, Amendment Number 1, Bylaw, that the third reading of Bylaw cited as that Financial Plan 2014-2018, Bylaw Number 2014, Number 2931, Amendment Number 1, Bylaw 2938. I need a motion for that. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Hall. Question?
Two questions, please, of staff, through the mayor.
Yes.
On parks operation, the HVAC upgrade, when we first anticipated upgrading this facility, we were made aware of electrical deficiencies. Was that accommodated within the original budgeted amount?
Councilor, through the mayor, no, that wasn't. We actually didn't notice that there was an HVAC system until we looked further into the building, so that wasn't part of the original budget.
So, yeah, I realize that the HVAC is in addition, but we did realize that there were electrical inefficiencies.
Correct.
But that was accommodated within the
That's correct.
The original.
That's correct. So we have to, within this $35,000, we have to make some structural improvements to allow the HVAC system to sit on top of the roof. So that's all part of the cost, inclusive of the HVAC system.
Okay, thank you. On 48th to 208, the upgrade that we're anticipating, are there changes to the original scope of the project, or is this additional money simply a reflection of increased construction costs because of the delay, or some miscalculations on the scope that was originally planned?
Yes, the scope is not changing. It's exactly the same project. As we mentioned at the last meeting, there was a discrepancy in the numbers, in the quantities, and that needed to be corrected before the tender closed. Yes.
Supplementary to that. So going forward, imagining that there's another road project, is there anything that we might do differently moving forward in terms of either catching those calculations or scoping it more accurately prior to going to tender?
I mean, errors are always difficult to catch unless you're made aware of them. However, on this one, the unit quantities, we will pay closer attention, the next roads project, to ensure and ask the questions of the consultant to double check and triple check their numbers to ensure that we don't get these kind of discrepancies.
Last one.
Yes.
It's supplementary to that. So what would be our next project that would be going to tender? Would it be the 200th Street and so we would go through that process for that particular project now?
Yes, 200. Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Against? It's unanimous 4. Next item is item 3B, development permit number 03-14, 20901 Langley bypass. A motion that development permit application DP 03-14 to accommodate the addition of a 419 square meter brewing instructional laboratory at 20901 Langley bypass be approved, subject to compliance with the conditions outlined in the Director of Development Services and Economic Developers Report number 14-033. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Hall, Councillor Martin. Discussion? Councillor Hall?
Of the proponent, could you go over the security provisions? How much product is going to be stored? What is going to prevent someone from, once this is produced, going in and taking it from the facility?
I'll let John speak to the building measures, as well as we do have security systems in place. We have minimized the amount of ground level glass, and that ground level glass, sorry John, I'm taking your piece, but it is laminated glass, so that we're preventing that. We're not going to have a large quantity of product here. So the product is predominantly created for the instructional purposes so that they can assess it, they can test it, they can, as well, they do sensory experience with it, so the tasting of it, and then it is predominantly discarded. So it goes down through an interceptor and then out to the sanitary system. So it's not where it's designed to be producing a significant quantity that's for other uses. It's predominantly around the learning experience.
Before you get to the other piece, I just have this vision in my head. I remember in the old days of Prohibition and whatnot, and when the confiscated liquor was dumped into the river, there were people downstream sticking their head in. So exactly where does this interceptor dump this excess fluid into the sewer system, and what prevents someone from trying to put in a bypass valve or something for some personal use?
It would be quite challenging to put in a bypass. The interceptor is situated right beside the building, between the two buildings. It's underground. It's part of the, pretty much as soon as it goes down the drain, it's into the sewer system, and it would be very challenging for someone to covertly intercept those fluids, and I don't think you would want to. But and I think Karen covered off the other security measures. We are doing safety glass. It'll be tempered over laminates, so it'll be as tough as you can get. As Karen said, there's limited glass area, just 2 windows at grade. Other doors will be hardened, so they'll be full commercial grade, hollow metal doors. The roll-up door will be commercial grade, and with all the appropriate hardware to prevent break-ins. And as you saw, there's not a lot of windows at grade, and the windows that we do have at grade are facing out towards the street, so there's good eyes on the street. And if RCMP or campus security are circulating around at night. They'll be able to see in and see what's going on. We'll also have perimeter lighting around all sides of the building to make sure it's well lit.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Against? It's unanimous 4. Next item is item 3C. That's the 2013 annual report. I need a motion that the annual report be approved. I need a motion. Councillor Arnold, Councillor Wallace. Discussion? Councillor Hall?
Of staff, the provincial government last year brought in an additional audit process, and I was wondering if that has kicked in, whether we know the locations of the audits for this year. And as last year was the first go-round, we weren't involved. So are we involved this year, and do we know anything more?
Yes. The first 5 phases of the audits were done last year, or they're actually currently undergoing those audits. They've only released the results of one of their audits, and that was relating to Roslyn in the interior. The next 2 phases of the audits, again, relate to projects that, or areas of audit that aren't being, the City of Langley is not being involved in those next 2 areas. Off the top of my head, I don't remember what they were, but we have not been advised that we're a part of those next 2 phases in 2014 going to 15.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Against? It's unanimous 4. The next item is Mayor's report. The delegations couldn't make it. So the next upcoming regular council meeting is July 7th, 2014, and that will be a televised meeting. The next regular one after that will be July 21st, 2014. Metro Vancouver, anything from Councillor Martin?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just to clarify some of the questions that Councillor Hall had last meeting in regards to the waste-to-energy facility. I did have a chance to speak to Mr. Henderson, who is the manager of the solid waste department. There is, as I said, no decision been made. Likely will not be made until 2016. And if it's a go-ahead, operating by 2019. The technology has not been decided. There's several energy options, hydro being one in regards to the hydro cost. Fuel to operate a cement factory, gasification, there's several different technologies, but not anywhere near that. They're still gathering information. They don't have all the answers, like we don't have. We've got the questions, they've got the questions. A site has not been chosen. It'll depend on the final RFP. And in regards to some of the I want to say controversy, a lot of the pressure is coming from companies in regards to the new Bylaw 280. So, you know, they're mixing it, saying that's why we're doing a waste energy facility because Bylaw 280 is coming in, and that's basically what it is. And coincidentally, we had a report at the same meeting in regards to the waste energy facility in Burnaby. And there has been no detectable impacts associated with ambient air in 2013 in Burnaby. So, you know, I guess you can say all kinds of things, but the waste energy plant has been in Burnaby for over 20 years, and they keep it up to date with the latest technology. If we do go ahead with the waste energy facility, it'll be the latest technology and probably have even less impacts with the air quality than the Burnaby one does now. So I hope that answers your questions, and that's about all I have. Thank you.
Councillor Hall?
It does give rise to a few more, though. So when can we anticipate public disclosure of the business case for this venture? Much of the controversy has been over the discussion over the available hydro rates, whether they're getting a preferred rate or a regular rate, which might jeopardize the project. So moving forward, do we have a date for the I realize it's in-camera information and it's a report that's in closed meeting, but when will that business case come forward to the public so the public can actually make some choices on their own?
Well, I guess it'll come forward when they're ready to bring it forward. And as far as hydro goes, I mean, hydro is one of the options that is being looked at. And until, and perhaps Mr. Chung and Mr. Baumhoff could correct me, but I mean, I guess until, you know, they've got to get a business plan together, but I think they have to get closer to a decision as to sort of what kind of technology they're going to use. Is that correct, Mr. Chung?
That's correct. Once they identify the technologies and the site location, then they would be able to provide additional information, determines what the rates are.
Yeah. I can assure you that there will be a lot of public consultation. I mean, like, you know, as Metro Vancouver may be a lot of things, but their public consultation process is I think, very top-notch, and, you know, we'll get a chance, but this is another 5 years out before it's even operating. So, you know, the questions you have, Councillor Hall, are the questions probably a lot of people have, and even some of the people at Metro Vancouver. So this was just basically to update you on some of the things that you were asking about last week. So if I can't answer anything else, I apologize, but if I ever do get the answers, I'll let you know.
One last? Just specifically on the Burnaby facility, I realize that it's largely the Upper Valley people that are talking about the air quality that comes out, but seems to me there were, it was about a year back, some measurements that came out of the Burnaby facility about the residuals, the metals left over from the process, and there were some numbers that spiked. And I don't know whether that was perhaps a temporary thing, but has there been some further reporting? I think at the time the operators of the facility had suggested that they would re-look at the processes.
Well, all I can say is that the report that we had on the Burnaby incinerator, and it was quite in depth, but you know, one of the things I did take from that there was no detectable impacts. As a matter of fact, they measured the air quality, and they don't go up to the valley because it's more Richmond and Delta and stuff like that. But there is more, the air quality is worse from automobiles by a lot than it is anything coming out of this waste energy facility. But they did not measure up the valley on this particular report because it basically, as they said, it came in from Richmond. And if you want me to get that report and have it sent to you, I can certainly do that. And you can look at it.
Further? Seeing not. Library report, there is nothing to report on the library today. Next item is the Community Day and Parade event this past weekend. We had an incredible turnout for the parade. The Community Day was spectacular. My councillor colleague Terry James is unable to be here this evening, so I'd just like to, on her behalf, mention that the Community Day Committee was made up of herself, Councillor Jack Arnold, Janet Bennett from the Southgate Church, Steve Nicholson from Christian Life Assembly, and Christian Life Assembly went all out this year. We had incredible turnout by their volunteers for the parade and the Highland Games, and council members were involved with the Highland Games in the tug-of-war, which we lost. But we had a lot of fun, and Stephen Barks from City Serve, from Christian Life, he was there, and it was just a great overall weekend. And I'd like to especially thank the staff from Community Day and on the Parade Committee. It was Kim Hilton and Tara Edel, Kyle Simpson, and Deborah Joyal. They put it all together and made the event really, really, I don't know. It was ahead of what it was last year. If we can only see what next year was going to be like, I mean, it's going to be hard to top this year's event. So the Parade Committee was made up of myself and Councillor Arnold, Ron Learn, who was the gentleman that handled the horses and made sure the horses and the parade people got together, Bobby Hill from the Langley Advance, and Sandy Dunkley. And Sandy Dunkley got some entertainers together to go along the Fraser Highway. So again, some of the sponsors, again, we couldn't do it without sponsorship. The Save On Foods were incredible. They helped with our advertising budget. Their crews went out and they were with their carts, their volunteers handing out bananas along the route, which was incredible. The Cascades Casino, their match public house, they donated the sound equipment for the stage at the announcer's booth. They helped with the guidance of the parade route. They got out there in full force. Canadian Tire at the Community Day itself, the event, they donated a barbecue. And Langley Advance, through all their advertising, really went all out. So it was a great day by all. Is there questions, any comments from council members on Saturday, Sunday? Councillor Arnold.
Thank you. What we did have was, of course, we have some judges. I was watching them trying to figure it out, too, and it didn't look like the easiest job in the world. But we did get some awards that we gave out. The best band was the Falun Dafa Association of Vancouver. The best clown was Wayne Coast Clown Group. The best equestrian was the BC Farm Museum. And the best float, my own personal favorite, was the Fraser Valley Italio Canadian Society. The best walking group, Lisa's School of Dance. And the Community Spirit Award went, of course, to the Langley Ukulele Ensemble.
Thank you, Councillor Arnold. Anything further? Seeing not. Next item is the TransLink Transportation Plan. And for the most part, the press releases are out there, but for the south of the Fraser and for the Langley area, I'll just read out some of the information that's pertinent to this area here. The south of the Fraser communities are some of the fastest growing communities in Metro Vancouver, currently experiencing congestion and long and unreliable commute times. These communities will continue to grow and are expected to welcome 380,000 new residents over the next 30 years. So the plan was a 30-year vision with a 10-year plan increments. The new light rail transit, the LRT service, will be introduced on King George Boulevard and 104th between Guildford and Surrey City Centre and Newton within the first 7 years, along with the Fraser Highway between Surrey City Centre and Langley Centre within the first 12 years of this vision. I'm quite pleased that it's in a plan, in a vision, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. And that's it in a quick nutshell. There's more information online, but I just wanted to say that it was quite exciting to be part of this. And as I said, I just hope it comes to fruition. Councillor Hall?
Question, Mr. Mayor. The public may well know that the mayor is the sole representative on this mayor's council, and so I'm going to ask the question. In that the province immediately rejected the notion of using existing carbon tax. The idea was floated that there be an additional 1% or 0.5 or some component of carbon tax added to provide ongoing funding for this. So moving forward, what position will you be taking on that additional tax, and what the heck is the delay in comprehensive road and bridge toll pricing?
We, as the Mayor's Council, have handed it off to the province. The Minister has said what he has said, but it hasn't gone to the Cabinet as yet for their discussion. So I am not sure what the province will say on new carbon tax or existing carbon tax. I just don't know. our recommended suggestion and our recommended routes. Our recommended suggestion was road pricing and carbon tax, and what the province will do from there on in, I'm not sure. That's the same as with the referendum itself when it comes. That is in the hands of the province right now. We're having a mayor's meeting, I believe it's Thursday, to iron out some of the questions that we have, same as yourself. So I am not sure what the final word will be from the province.
So supplementary to that, has the province issued an official statement rejecting the notion
No.
of accessing that?
No.
So will you be coming back to council after you get that official word to, I guess, ask or ask for input from your council as to whether they would be in favor of an additional carbon tax or not?
Yes, I'll bring it back to council for a discussion at that point. And the long and short of it is it's a $7.5 billion plan over 30 years. And if it does go forward, I don't know where the funding will come from. It's a lot of money. The only community that voted against it was Burnaby. So all the other communities voted in favor because there was something there. And I think the communities realize that they have to do something or else they're going to come to a gridlock down the road. We fought very hard on the south side of the river with Diane Watts, Lois Jackson, Wayne Baldwin, Jack Froese, and myself to at least be recognized. And we got the LRT in the 10-year plan, and hopefully they'll go into some kind of, if it's all approved, into some kind of working agreements in about year 6 or 7. So because construction, in a perfect world, construction would start in year 8, it would be finished in year 12. So at the long and short of it is that we'll be coming back with more information to this council after I have further meetings. So next item is, let's see, BC Economic Development Association Brownfield Redevelopment Strategy. And this little thing here, I should actually have Mr. Minchuk be up here with this thing. He is the gentleman that has worked really, really hard on this innovative project. And this is the press release that went out. There we go. Okay. To Mr. Minchuk and his staff, they have worked very, very hard. We've now won a national award. We've won an award for brownfield through the development industry, and now the province has actually recognized this. In a ceremony held a week ago, the British Columbia Economic Development Association awarded its prestigious BC Economic Development Community Award population of over 20,000 to the City of Langley for its innovative brownfield redevelopment strategy. This is for communities over 20,000 people. You imagine there was probably, I'm guessing, a dozen to 20 other communities that were vying for this, and Langley City, with its 26,000, 27,000 people and its hardworking staff, have made this possible. The BC Economic Development Awards recognize the province's best economic development programs, partnerships, and marketing materials designed to create positive change in urban, suburban, and rural communities. It's, you know, Mr. Minchuk, when you have the mic later, you should say a few words, because you were the gentleman that made this possible. So again, to all those involved with your staff and yourself especially, thank you for your hard work and making this work. The Creative Cities Conference report, Councillor Wallace.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity of sharing of this adventure and affording me to be able to go on this 2014 Creative Cities Summit that took place in Hamilton, where Hamiltonians were surveyed, and 92% of them viewed culture key to the city's quality of life, and it was a perfect example in touring around the city. This summit rotates year from year across Canada, and the 13th annual summit will be held next year in Kelowna. It was rewarding to be part of this year's summit and to have the opportunity to engage with those from across Canada and beyond in discussions and networking around heritage, arts, and culture. The 45-minute sessions went by very quickly, and from them, the information shared was very useful and informative. Topics from cultural mapping, placemaking, public art, events, engaging in the many arts disciplines were shared. The guided tours that took the delegates out into the once industrial city of Hamilton showed how the city embraced the arts culture in the mixed use of updated facilities by combining new with old framework. It was interesting to see how the city contributed to the support of local musicians and artists in creating opportunities in events and business opportunities in the downtown core and adjoining neighborhoods. This was seen by how spaces were converted to accommodate arts within the community in buildings that were waiting to be developed, or from developers believing in the arts and working with the artists and musicians and theater people to create that. So that added to the culture of Hamilton. If you ever get a chance to go to Hamilton, the Hamilton Art Gallery will be celebrating its 100th anniversary this year, and is the third largest gallery in Ontario. It has been transformed to become an international and national art destination where the gallery owns 10,000 works of national art, works of historical European, historical Canadian, and contemporary art. It's totally amazing. I got to, one of the tours was to go into their vault, and thousands and thousands of works from Emily Carr, the Group of Seven. It was yeah. I have to share, I enjoyed every session. I did not skip out of one session. They were so informative. I have to share that my favorite speaker, and if you guys want to look him up, he's got some pretty awesome public engagement things that he has done. And Rob Bliss is from Chicago, a 24-year-old viral video director. He has created multiple videos and has been featured by countless national and international news organizations. Also, in the past 5 years, he has held public events with attendance totaling 100,000 people without spending $1 on advertising. He's quite hyper, but he's amazing. Gerald, I'll just have you put that up. All in all, the many pages and ideas and notes and inspiration delivered from the Creative Cities Summit has left me wanting to continue to share with the Recreation and Culture and Public Arts Committee, our Youth Committee, as I was inspired on how they engaged their youth. There was this program that they took kids that were struggling, kids that were on the streets, and they formed a space for them where they got to be involved in developing that space, and they taught them all about the business aspects of being an artist. And they shared with how they connect with the engineering department, which was pretty cool, connecting artists with engineering to have artists work alongside engineers from the beginning of a project to the end of the project. Because oftentimes what we don't see is the infrastructure under the ground, so just the waterworks and all of that. So working alongside the artist, that was pretty amazing. So I just want to thank everybody once again for the opportunity to go to this conference, and I have passed on much information to Ms. Hilton, and out in the foyer, if you're interested, I have formulated a collage with what I brought back. So thank you very much.
The next, Councillor Hall.
In Vancouver, the last little while, they've made a big deal about the Emily Carr University moving out of Granville Island. In Granville Island, years ago, there were visionaries that saw that industrial site and its potential to convert to the arts. You suggested in Hamilton there's been that same kind of conversion. Did they talk at all about the sources of funding for that? So Mr. Minchuk has developed, in conjunction with the rest of the staff, I went on the brownfield conversion of contaminated sites and whatnot. Our challenge right now is how do we implement that plan for conversion? So was there anything to be learned from Hamilton in terms of implementing and funding these initiatives?
For me, I guess it was the developer. He was very involved in music. The music scene in Hamilton is incredible, the way they support their local musicians, and they're coming out of the woodwork. But this guy, what he does is he buys up buildings, and he converts them to residential and, mixed use. And he adds that mix into it with the arts, along with other businesses. But like Emily Carr, it's kind of in one area. In what I noticed in Hamilton is then within the whole of the downtown core, they have actually 2 days out of the month every summer, or during the summer, 2 days out of the month where they have an artist crawl. So they just have everybody come out of the woodwork. So there's and they keep the traffic going. So if you're, a youth and you're wanting to fundraise for something, you've got your T-shirts that you've made, and so it all seems to. I think there's just a lot of partnerships and a lot of belief in what the arts community can give to the city. So there's the Ontario Arts Council that helps them out, and there's other arts focuses that help them out as well. The Creative City Network is the one that puts on this summit, and it is so if you wanted to go and look up the Creative City Network, you would find out more information on partnerships, and it is done through membership. So I would suggest that, I'm just going to make a suggestion that the city might want to have somebody from the planning, recreation, events become a member, because the information was invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace. The next item is from Mr. Rick Baumhoff, the solid waste collection calendar.
Yes, I just wanted to make reference to the flyer that went out, dated May 19th, to residences. It unfortunately, inadvertently, the file that was used for the calendar had some errors in it. So we're asking people, we haven't had a lot of complaints about it. We've had one person, a new resident, came into the community that noticed it. But the correct calendar was given out at the beginning of the year, which was prior to the MMBC changes. So that is the calendar that we're requesting people to use. The fortunate thing in the city is that the May 19th changes occurred obviously towards the middle of the year, so people had already established their garbage routes and their collection calendars, so they're not referring to this calendar per se, except maybe when there's a change, but our garbage service stays on the same day, so it's relatively straightforward. We don't see it as a significant problem, so we're dealing with it on an as-needed basis. When people call in, if they have questions about it, we'll deal with it. If it becomes a larger issue and misinformation, larger numbers are complaining about it, we may begin to advertise and draw attention to the correct calendar. We have corrected it on the website, so they do have the correct information. We've corrected it at the counter. If they come to the counter, we give them the right information.
Thank you. One last item is a press release that's going out today. I believe it has gone out. As the new Tim Center is just around the corner, the City of Langley Council and staff are inviting residents to stop by for coffee at City Hall this Thursday, that's June the 26th, at 2 p.m. for the official unveiling of the new Tim's Community Center design. The new two-story Tim's Community Center will tie into the existing City Hall and Library building, enabling users and staff to capitalize on the benefits of an interconnected facility Such benefits will include enhanced service coordination and integration, efficiencies through shared resources, and improved accessibility for the public through a one-stop shop service delivery. The completion date for the project is slated for December 15, 2015. So come by. It's this week, Thursday, June 26th. Those in the gallery, I know you're quite interested. There's probably 1, 2, 3, 4 that are really interested in this. And out in the viewing audience, I'm guessing there's probably another half a dozen or a dozen. So if you want to come and take a look at this new facility, it is June the 26th, Thursday, 2 p.m., and you'll be impressed. So, next item. Bylaws, 2935, Financial Plan 2013 to 2017, the Amendment Bylaw. At the final reading of this bylaw, cited as Financial Plan 2013-2017, Bylaw 2013, number 2908, Amendment number 3, Bylaw 2935. I need a motion for this. Councillor Hall, Councillor Martin, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Next item is Bylaw 2936. First and second reading of bylaw cited as zoning bylaw 1996, number 2100, amendment number 121, 2014, number 2936, and this is for a zoning bylaw amendment at 19690, 19700, 19710, 19720, 55A Avenue. I need a motion for this. Councillor Martin, Councillor Arnold. Is there any kind of discussion? Councillor Hall.
Raised at the advisory planning committee stage were concerns about single-car garages and the potential to convert garage to either living space or storage space with the potential spill out of parking, not only in front of these units, both this and the next reading, but to the neighborhood. And I guess I was wondering, given the suggestions of other apartment dwellers and other development proposals, that there be perhaps some restrictive parking for residents only, not in front of these units, but rather in front of their own. Whether we have made any progress in the investigation of that possibility by staff to have something that does not exist right now, local parking only restrictions.
I'll ask staff to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Hall. The provision of tandem parking is acceptable within our townhouse development projects. The issue at hand is often what occurs is following occupancy of those units, the owner elects to utilize one of the tandem stall parking spaces for excess storage. As part of the development permit approval process, development permit plans are in fact registered at the Land Titles Office, and as such we bring it to the owner's attention when we receive a complaint that the storage within the tandem parking stall is not acceptable. It's not what City Council approved, and as such they need to rectify the situation. So we've been working through that mechanism quite effectively to ensure that tandem parking stalls are used for the intended purpose of providing off-street parking for the residential units being constructed and not intended for storage. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Supplementary, but that doesn't answer the question, because the complaint is not likely to come from another person within the townhouse unit here. It's rather likely to come from some resident that lives elsewhere, and they have lost their own parking because of the spill out. So there may or may not be complaint, but the complaint is likely to be a lack of parking complaint and not a specific, those guys over there have filled in their garage complaint. So the question was, have we started to look at what was requested by earlier people speaking at public hearings, to look at in the downtown core area or the more densely inhabited areas of the city, a parking provision that might provide designated residential parking for an owner of perhaps a single-family dwelling that's beside some townhouse development or condominium or something else. Certainly in more urban areas, certainly in Vancouver that exists. It certainly happens in areas of New Westminster. As we densify, we need to start to look at those kind of conflicts.
Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Hall. I guess, firstly, we have not entertained the concept of implementing a residential permit parking regime, recognizing as we continue to densify, that's an issue that parking becomes an issue. We haven't fundamentally felt any strong I guess, desire by way of complaints. But interesting on the other point that you raised, often, not always, but often what occurs is when a individual tenant within a strata complex elects to use storage within their tandem designated parking requirement, it does create an issue sometimes right within the strata complex, when the tenant is utilizing a designated visitor parking stall. So those are the issues from a staff perspective we often are involved in enforcement, but we haven't felt the need to work towards a residential permitting regime. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Yes, I just want to clarify in regards to the tandem perhaps being turned partially into a storage. Did you say there'd be like a registered covenant against when those are built and sold? So the strata will know that is not allowed?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Martin, we have not utilized a covenant mechanism. The disclosure statement that relates to the real estate transaction indicates that the tandem stall is for parking purposes. But notwithstanding, what often happens is those types of things can be misinterpreted subsequently down the road. Sometimes when tenants when the strata purchaser elects to rent out the unit to a subsequent consumer or user. But the mechanism what we do have that you inferred was we do register the development permit plans at Land Title's office.
Okay.
And those development permit plans are approved by City Council. So we do have adequate teeth to ensure enforcement compliance. Thank you.
And obviously they meet the parking requirements, parking bylaw requirements.
That's correct.
Now. Thank you.
Further discussion? Councillor Arnold?
Yeah, now they're required to not store anything in these tandem ones, right? But what if they only have one vehicle? I mean, my daughter has a tandem garage, but she only has one vehicle. When I go visit her, I park in visitors, but then I'm a visitor. She only has one vehicle, so she uses half of her garage. The other half is where she does woodwork and all her other stuff. So, not that you would be likely to get a complaint in a situation like that, but technically, are they doing something wrong then?
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Arnold, we would respond on a complaint basis. The tandem parking requirement is to ensure that each townhouse residential unit has 2 spaces per unit, recognizing that we're not going to be inspecting subsequent to occupancy, that there isn't a storage of goods being stored within the tandem parking stall. The issue that we obviously get involved in is when the tandem parking stall area is not being used for vehicle parking. And vehicle parking is going either on the street or utilizing a designated on-site visitor parking stall. Thank you.
To Mr. Minchuk, it does pose a few interesting questions out there. If Mom has a car, Dad has a car, Junior has a car, Sis has a car, and they're in a 3-bedroom townhouse with just room for 2 cars, and not unlike some of the surrounding communities that have the carriage homes with a suite in the basement, and somewhat similar scenario. My colleagues bring up a very, I believe, a valid question there in down the road, that if the dynamics of the city are going more towards townhouses away from apartments in some areas, that maybe this could be addressed somehow. And I'll just leave it in your capable hands to see what else is going on in surrounding communities. You'd hate to, I know of a colleague that lives in another community. They have to, if they come home at 6 o'clock or 6:30 at night, they have to walk more than a half a block just to get to their front door, because the room just isn't there. I mean, they might have to kick out Mary and Johnny to have a parking spot, but that's not the answer, I don't think. So I'll just leave it in your capable hands. Thank you. So a vote on this motion. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Next item is first and second reading of a bylaw cited as zoning bylaw 1996, number 2100, amendment number 122, 2014, number 2937, and this is a zoning bylaw amendment for 20030, 20040, 20050 Mashad Crescent, and 5381, 5391, and 5401 201 Street. I need a motion. Councillor Martin, Councillor Hall, discussion at all? Councillor Hall?
Could I just ask through the acting mayor of staff to explain how townhouses came about here and perhaps in the other location where there was potential greater density to be acquired and perhaps a 4 or 5 story apartment block to be built. There's a choice by the developer, and I think it's a good choice of benefit to the city, but perhaps Mr. Minchuk could speak to the choice that was made.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Hall. Both subject bylaws that were introduced tonight for first and second reading, both applicants elected to proceed with a far lesser density form of housing than what is articulated within our Fisher Community Plan high density area, recognizing current market conditions and current absorption levels relating to a condominium uncertainty. The applications that will be presented for both bylaws to public hearing on July 7th, I'm sure we'll elaborate in greater detail, but prior to proceeding with an application of any significance, market research is undertaken, obviously involving financial institutions, measuring risk and all those factors included, and recognizing perhaps a void in the marketplace that can be addressed, minimizing risk and maximizing market absorption. Thank you.
Councillor Hall?
When we work with the school district in terms of future planning, do we have a different spill-out of potential students from townhouse development as opposed to apartment blocks?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Councillor Howe. Yes, we do have a different student rate for single-family townhousing density as well as apartment density forms. Recognizing our compact size and relatively few number of units, there is, I guess, extra capacity being provided when our estimates to the school district are calculated, recognizing that historically and even currently development projects proceeded at a lesser density or an alternative housing form. Thank you.
In terms of amenity space, when we have a large apartment block and whatnot, there's supposed to be some communal amenity space built in. When we do townhouses, one of these developments has rooftop amenity space for each unit, but do we have collective strata amenity space requirements for townhouses that are similar to what we require of larger buildings?
No, we don't. Condominium projects typically, as you're aware, would require an amenity room component that would include gathering space for strata meetings and alike, whereas townhouse projects cater to a different target market. We encourage, obviously, when possible, recognizing land constraints, just simply land size constraints. Often there's creative applications being made to attract market interest. For example, the project you referred to that will be subject to the July 7th public hearing have creatively developed a rooftop patio amenity space as part of their project, whereas the other project are only offering by way of outdoor amenity for private purposes an enlarged, expanded outdoor patio, sun deck. Recognizing, however, in both cases, the City of Langley has implemented a community amenity charge that can be used at the discretion of council, and we've recently increased that community amenity charge by way of $1,000 per unit that can go a long ways down the road to enhance the overall community needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? All those in favor? Against? Unanimous 4. The next item is Bylaw 2941. It's the first, second, and third reading to amend the bylaw cited as Highway and Traffic Regulation Bylaw 2013 number 2871, Amendment number 1, Bylaw 2014 number 2941. And this is the provision for the following that already exists in the bylaw, and the following paragraph was inadvertently deleted from the original bylaw when adopted. The MTI bylaw already contains the provision for the enforcement of the following: to add a section for providing notice to the owners of property adjacent to the boulevards of their requirement to maintain the boulevard, and in the event they fail to maintain the boulevard within a specific period, a provision allowing the city to perform the work and charge the expenses to the property owner and collect these expenses through taxes if unpaid. I need a motion for this. Councillor Hall, seconded by Councillor Wallace. A discussion at all? Seeing none, all those in favor? Against? Unanimous 4. Committee report 7A, Recreation, Culture, and Public Art Advisory Committee. A motion that Council consider the approval of the mural proposed, submitted by Magical Murals for the installation of the north-facing wall of the Langley Lawn Bowling Clubhouse. The cost of the mural is the total is to total $4,150 and to be completed in time for the Langley Senior Games. I need a motion for that. Councillor Arnold, Councillor Wallace. Councillor Wallace, would you like to speak on this?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, council has it in their packages. We had 2 murals submitted, and as you see, which one we chose. And if there are any questions from council, I'll be gladly to take them.
Discussion, Councillor Hall and Councillor Martin.
Well, the first question that begs is, did the lawn bowling people, were they consulted and asked what their choice was on the murals and whether they found this acceptable? Are they pushing for this, or?
Yep, they were consulted and have been working with us along the way, and I believe they like the one that we chose.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. It's a very attractive mural, quite a price difference in the two. And am I correct that we own that building, do we? We do, yeah. It's nice that the Lawn Bowling Club was certainly, but you know, and I think, well, why are we paying this? Well, we own the building. So very, very attractive mural going on there. I think it goes a long way. I don't know why there would be such a big price, $14,000 price difference.
That's a very good question. The price difference is the artist, what the artists get paid. So that's them submitting their proposals, and it would be the artist's costs.
Yeah, I mean, there's no comparison, but very, very attractive. Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Just one last clarification on the financing of this. This money was already approved. It's not $4,000 additional dollars. The budget was approved anything up to 25, and we'd already voted it through.
Yep.
So we're just choosing to look at this thing.
Yep. It's being. If we can move it, I'm going to ask to move it this evening, and it has already been discussed and approved by council that the money be spent towards this.
Councillor Martin.
Just one other thing is, it's going on the north side of the building. Is it going to cover the whole building, or is it going to be a strip like in here, or does anybody know?
Ms. Hilton.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Martin. Yes, the bulk of that north-facing wall will be covered in the mural. The artist will be attaching a surface to the clubhouse, because currently it's a siding that isn't conducive to painting. Yeah. So they will attach the surface to the siding, and then they'll paint it right on the side of the building.
Okay. Now, I know we were there just a couple of weeks ago, lawn bowling, and I know there's trees in that area, but I can't recall if there's what kind of trees are on the north side of the building. I'm sure the mural will be able to be seen, or the trees will be pruned, or whatever.
So again, through Your Worship, to Councillor Martin, we are meeting with the Lawn Bowling Club next week with the muralists as well. I think there's only a couple downspouts that are in the way of the mural, but they're going to actually be painted to be part of the mural.
Okay, thank you very much.
So if I can just, for the audience's privilege here, the current public art fund is $65,338, from which several approved projects are still pending. Projects still outstanding include artist signage at the corner of 51B Avenue and 207th Street, with a project budget up to $25,000. Music and sport banners along 207th Street, with a project budget of $250 for artwork, and a mural on the pump house at Douglas Park with no pre-approved budget as yet. So just for the audiences to know.
Further discussion? All those in favor of this? Against? It's unanimous 4. Next item is under the administrative reports, number 8A, renewed federal gas tax agreement, community works funding, that Council for the City of Langley resolved to enter into the 2014 to 2024 Community Works Fund agreement under the administrative agreement on the federal gas tax fund in British Columbia with the Union of British Columbia Municipalities. I need a mover and a seconder. Mover for Councillor Wallace, seconder. Councillor Schaefer, or Schaefer? Discussion, yeah. Yeah. I'll ask our CAO to speak on this matter.
Thank you, Your Worship. The federal government and the UBCM, which is the Union of BC Municipalities, recently signed a renewed gas agreement on May 22nd. Under the new agreement, there's now opportunity for local governments in Metro Vancouver to tap into what they call the Community Works Fund. Under the previous agreement, the entire funding under that Capital Works Fund was allocated to TransLink for regional transportation works. With this new agreement, they have allocated $519.3 million over the first 5 years of the agreement to local government in Metro Vancouver under the Community Works Fund for eligible projects like local roads, bridges, highways, public transit, wastewater, solid waste, community energy system, brownfield redevelopment, sports infrastructure, recreation infrastructure, cultural infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, disaster mitigation, and so on and so forth. The City of Langley, in terms of the funding allocation, there's a base funding of $50,000 plus per capita, and that's based on the 2011 Canada census population. And for 2015, which is the first year of the funding agreement, the city will be able to receive $121,599.90 in 2 equal installments for eligible projects. And the funding will be increased based on indexing in future years beyond year 2. And this is a great opportunity for us, the city, to use that funding for a number of much-needed projects in the city, and the recommendation is to seek council approval to execute the agreement. Thank you.
Discussion, Councillor Hall.
I think the reluctance to move and second this was that this is pretty confusing. Not the report itself, but the reallocation of the funding. So if you could just clarify. Now, this money at one time was going to fund TransLink, and we've already heard the challenges of TransLink funding. So does this create a new hole in the TransLink funding that has to be replaced by something else? Or is this a complete add-on and we're still paying that TransLink component?
I think there is some reallocation of fundings that will be going to TransLink towards this Community Works Fund. We're not sure how much that is. I know in the past, TransLink was receiving over, between the 10-year time frame from 2005 to 2015, over $799 million from Metro Vancouver towards TransLink. So I suspect that part of that funding will now be reallocated to local governments within Metro Vancouver for their own use. That's because Metro Vancouver municipalities over this new term of the agreement have been lobbying UBCM and the federal government that part of that money should be coming back to local governments within Metro Vancouver to carry out projects that are much needed within their own municipalities, and not all the allocation going towards TransLink for regional transportation system.
See, my hesitancy on accepting this is that it sounds good that we're getting some solid 121,000 funding that we can put to other infrastructure and whatnot, but at the same time I'm being told by the Mayor's Council that, well, if there's a shortage of funding, they're going to have to start to look for other things like higher property tax, which the provincial government advocates, but the Mayor's Council says, no, we're never going to go there again. Or an additional carbon tax to make up the difference, or perhaps licensing fees or something else to replace what we're getting. So what could be a good news item could actually result in something uglier down the road.
Any further discussion on that? No. Councillor Martin.
Well, again, Mr. Chung, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this Community Works Fund, you and I were at a transportation workshop several years ago, as a matter of fact, and they were talking about, they talked about this Community Works Fund, and I remember looking at you and saying, have you ever heard of that? And you said no, and neither one of us had either heard of it. But other communities outside of Metro Vancouver, all through British Columbia, were able to take advantage of this Community Works Fund. And I think that's what we're talking about here, right? Is that fund that's always been available except to Metro Vancouver. Or maybe we could have applied then, or we didn't know about it. I just
Your Worship, to Councillor Martin, there were two other funds. One was the Capital Works Fund that we're talking about. That one was always there, but it's not eligible for municipalities within Metro Vancouver.
Yeah.
The other fund is what they call Innovative Fund. It has always been there, and that's the one that we're referring to.
Okay.
And based on the experience in terms of eligible projects that were funded under the Innovative Fund, most of the projects were funded for municipalities outside the Metro Vancouver region, and that's why we weren't really aware of it. It was kind of by...
Could we still apply for that Innovative?
That Innovative Fund is no longer there.
It's not, this is sort of
replacing
it. Okay, gotcha, thank you.
Councillor Hall.
So let me clarify what we're voting on here. So we're receiving the report, but the recommendation says that we're going into an agreement here. So if we vote for this, we're taking in $121,000 or something like that. If we have a problem with this and we decide to vote against it, all we're doing is we're turning over 121 with no prospect of gaining that back in any other manner. So what you're asking us to vote for tonight is to simply accept the 121 as a gift and sort of trust that we're not going to get gouged later and fight against it if we do. I guess that's the interpretation.
My interpretation would be along the same line, is that we accept, my thoughts on this would be accept the money, but don't spend it, don't put it too far away, because who knows what's going to come back to bite us down the road. You know, if the government is giving us this, what's it being taken away from? So it's great to accept this now. If we do say no, we do say no to the monies, but it's probably prudent for us to accept this and see what happens down the road. Councillor Martin?
Well, again, I just want to clarify, the $121,599, that is not going to go into our bank in 2 equal installments. We have to apply for this, and if we're eligible, we'll get it. Is that what I'm reading in under budget implications?
Your Worship, Councillor Martin, that funding will come through to the city, and we know we're going to have projects that will be eligible for these funds, and there is going to be a reporting structure at year end to report out that we have spent and allocate the fundings for eligible projects, and just a reporting structure.
I mean, I know we'll have eligible projects, but if we didn't have eligible projects, we wouldn't be getting this money.
Correct,
right? So it's not sort of something, if we vote yes, we get all the money.
We get the money anyways.
We get the money anyway. Oh, well, that's even better news. Thank you very much.
Discussion. If it's done. All those in favor? Against? It's unanimous 4. The next one is that the City of Langley acknowledges the receipt of $353,830 from the provincial government to help fund the salary of 3 RCMP officers from the traffic fine revenue received in 2013. I need a motion. Councillor Hall, Councillor Martin. Any discussion?
I didn't move it.
Oh.
She moved it. Somebody else did.
Oh, you moved. You had a twitch.
Yeah, I must have.
Okay, it's Councillor Martin moving, seconded by Councillor Wallace. Question.
Okay, on a yearly basis, we plan for a certain number of police officers, and then the positions don't always materialize. For a variety of reasons, we spend less than what we got. So we've planned here with this amount of money. Other communities don't take this money directly and pay for 3 regular duty officers. Some of them spend them in different manner, perhaps on integrated teams, perhaps on local initiatives for crime reduction and whatnot. So I'm going to ask again, and I know I had a failed motion earlier, but have we looked at what other communities do with this allocation of money And perhaps have we considered going forward in future budget cycles to perhaps spend this money in a different manner than a straight allocation for 3 general duty officers?
To staff?
Or maybe these are integrated team officers. Actually.
These are our regular members, part of our 50.35 members in our contract strength, so we would have to find other funding to fund those members if we weren't using traffic fine revenues. So no, we haven't tried to reallocate this money to something else because we want to keep the 3 officers that we have.
Councillor Hall?
But as we have learned over the years, even though we plan for a certain number of officers, what is it, 53 in this case? Or what is it?
50.35.
50.35, so I messed up the numbers a little bit. But anyway, they never seem to totally materialize, and we end up with a surplus that we then take and park in the police reserve. So is there a possibility that we might anticipate, as annually happens, a lack of filling of the planned positions, and rather than moving that money into straight police reserve, perhaps deliver it to other kinds of initiatives so that we spend the money that we promised our ratepayers that we were collecting for that purpose in a more targeted way?
Thank you, Mayor Schaefer. Through to Councillor Hall. We could certainly use the future police cost reserve funding for what you're talking about. It's a different source than this, but yeah, the same effect could happen. We could spend money out of the future police cost reserve for a specific project that council would want to see happen.
Thank you.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Against? Councillor Hall is against. Next item is new and unfinished business. There's a motion and notice of the motion. Councillor Hall, you have one?
I got 2, don't I?
One sheet. You're up to bat.
Okay, so this is going to next meeting, so these are notices of motion. First one is that the City of Langley and its acting mayor and council seek timely and genuine consultation and discussion with the trustees and staff of School District Number 35, Langley, regarding future facilities planning and implementation, busing, and expenditures related to seismic upgrading. And the second notice of motion is the acting mayor and council of the City of Langley direct staff to prepare a report that surveys the staffing levels of community recreation and culture facilities that are of roughly a comparable size, approximately 30,000 square feet, to the proposed Tim's Community Center, with reference to programming and supervision needs, maintenance, and security.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Anything further? Seeing none, need a motion to adjourn. Well, that was quick. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Arnold. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you for joining us. Till next time.